and
hello, hello,
gentlemen,
hello.
boys and girls of all ages. Welcome back to We Are Your Aunties. Not only are we your aunties, we're your favorite aunties.
Yes.
So excited to be with you, even after the day after. Well, some people call it Christmas. We won't get into those details. But the main holiday that takes place in America on December 25th. And we're super, super excited to see you. We hope that you all have had a wonderful holiday season so far. And we thank you so, so, so much for joining us this evening. So you could be anywhere at all. You're here with us, and we are super, super duper excited that you decided to join us. I am Auntie Paige, better known as Paige Means Hopper, the author and founder of Healing the Wounds of American Slavery, and just want you to meet the other ladies who are here. You probably have met them before, but if you're new here, then we want to give them an opportunity to also let you know who they are as well. So go right ahead, Auntie Rosemarie. Tell them who you are.
I am so excited to be here. As always, I am a film director, major films, I'm sorry, and a plays director, writer, and producer, executive producer, and an artist, and a creative person.
Yes, you are. And Auntie Genoa?
Oh, good evening, people. I am Auntie Genoa. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm an auntie, I'm a sister, I'm a cousin, I'm a friend, and I do a wide variety of things. But today I'm here for you guys to share the benefit of the wisdom that I've gained and help you to be able to move forward in your future.
Love that. And finally, last but definitely not least, Auntie Wanda.
Hey, people. How are you? What a year we have had. My name is Wanda Lee Florstein. I am a few things like all the other ladies. I'm not going to name them all. I'm just here to be with you this evening, and I hope that I can share some of my life, love, and liberties with you to have you move forward in your next chapter. And I'm really enjoying my Queen Age years.
Woo! Queen Age! I love it! Yeah!
I'm still in that, Auntie Wanda.
I know, right? Yes. And you know what? If you get it on a t-shirt, you got to buy it from Auntie Wanda.
Give me my royalties.
Royalties. I like that pun. So we are here to have big fun tonight. We are going to, as Tina Turner used to say in her song, Rolling on the River, she said, we're going to start out nice and easy. But then to the end, we're going to make it nice and rough. So we're going to start out with the topic, nice and easy. And then we're going to end it nice and rough and knock it and destroy it out of our lives, right? Get it out of here. So we're going to be talking tonight about masking and pretending, right? Masking and pretending. So automatically, when we say masking and pretending, that brings up like a certain, I don't know, sort of an emotional feeling for me. People call it a vibration, whatever you like to call it. It brings up something for everyone, I think, masking and pretending. And especially if you're in the process of doing the work of unmasking, right? Which means essentially that you come into a phase where you are being authentic and you're being genuine and you're just being real, right? And if you're having a bad day, you don't go around saying, oh, I'm fine when people ask you how you are. Like, you tell them how you are without overburdening them with every problem you have in your life. There's a balance in there. Like, nobody wants to hear all your complaints, but at the same time, if you're my friend, if I love you, even if you're just one of my clients, an associate, I want to know, exactly where you are and how you're feeling. So I'm going to go ahead and read just a little bit out of the book. I'm going to go to page 181, I believe it is. Yes. And let's just first of all talk about what this is, right? Masking and pretending, 181. And again, in the book, there's always a main emotion or set of emotions. And then underneath that, like all the other trigger emotions and little emotions that go with it, right? Or the wounds that go with it. So in this one, under masking and pretending is false bravery, vulnerable and unprotected, bucking authority, disobedience and rebellion. There's a place for those things. And being property. Ooh, being property. Remember, these are all inherited wounds from the institution of slavery that may have been passed down from our ancestors through their oppressors, right? So we just get the double whammy, the double dose of it. So here's what I say. On page 181, I say, masking and pretending is tantamount to shucking and jiving, being phony, putting on a front. Like the chameleon, we move off center from our true selves and change our personality or behavior according to a given situation. This is different than being slick, conniving, or manipulative. This has more to do with deception for survival. Paul Laurence Dunbar's 1895 poem, We Wear the Mask, depicts it this way. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts, we smile and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but, oh great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. That poem is so deep. Those few lines, and especially if you think about the era that he wrote it, 1895, so that's 30 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. Maya Angelou came along and did an adaptation in about 1987, I think it was. And then I did an adaptation for today's generation, and I call it The Evolution of the Mask. And I may read a little bit from that, a couple of stanzas from that later. But I wanted to go back to that first part that I read, right? Like, what do we call masking and pretending? So we're not talking about like somebody putting on a mask and pretending in order to manipulate or destroy or deceive someone else. We're talking about masking and pretending in the sense of survival, masking for survival. So in that sense, do you see that happening? And if you do see it happening, or if it's happening to you, one of our viewers, and again, we totally and completely invite all of your questions. And remember, we are your aunties. You can tell us everything and you can ask us anything, but there's a way to say everything. So absolutely drop your comments, drop your questions in the chat, and we will be excited to interact with you on this. So on that note, let's talk about it. Anybody have any ideas, or have you seen this in motion anywhere in your life, or do you find yourself doing it from time to time? What's happening with that mask situation? Go ahead, Auntie.
Well, when you were reading the poem, I thought about the social media platforms that we're all on. You know, everybody living their best life on the social media platforms, and if you didn't know some of the people personally, you would think that that's really their lives, but they are masking and pretending like, oh yeah, I got it going on, and I got this and I got that. And then when stuff leaks out, like when they have news or anything, and you see all this wild stuff going on, you've been thinking, what's going on here? We just saw you, not to bring up sad news, but even with that guy, Twitch from the Ellen Show.
I was just thinking about him.
And they showing all these videos of him just before the event, smiling, they dancing and having a good time. He enjoying his best life. Whoa, what happened?
Yeah. So with Twitch, in case you didn't know, in case you've been living under a rock, now Twitch was a performer, a dancer, entertainer, and he started out, like a lot of other dancers, doing gigs, just on basic platforms, and then he moved up to So You Think You Can Dance as a judge, and then Ellen discovered him, and he went on the Ellen show and became her DJ, even though he's really not a DJ. He's a dancer and an extraordinary dancer. Well, he was, but he recently committed suicide. He left his house and he left his car at his house, which his wife said was an unusual behavior. He went to a hotel in Beverly Hills somewhere and he shot himself. But as Auntie Genoa was explaining, up until that moment, like when you go back and look at the videos, even the day before, a few days before, he's just dancing away, just all in character, doing his thing. But when that happened, although I was really sad because this man was a bright light. I mean, you could tell, he walks into a room and it just lights up. Yeah. Everyone's happy and excited to see him. And he could just turn your frown upside down. And speaking of that, like he would always be smiling, right? Dancing and smiling. But when it happened, although I was sad, I wasn't surprised. And let me tell you why. Because I always thought something was off. You can look at a person and well, I don't know if you can, but there are those of us, especially those of us who are very wise, right? Mm-hmm. Like all of us here on this screen, who can look and see, that the mouth might be smiling. We might see teeth, but the eyes are the window to the soul. And there was always a mismatch with me. For me. And so that's a really good example. As a matter of fact, right now there's a meme going around, right? And there's a picture of him, Robin Williams, Miss America or Miss USA. I don't remember which, but the one who jumped out of a window to her death. And then there was one other person on there, but also the other person I think of that I love, I mentioned him before, is Michael K. Williams. The brother with the scar across his face. Oh my God, what a talent. Just incredibly brilliant. But apparently, brilliance, money, success, fame, celebrity are not guards as masks, right? Against what's really going on behind the mask, which oftentimes is depression. Either Auntie Rosemary or Auntie Wanda want to ring in on this?
Well, I was just thinking about the song by Smokey Robinson, "The Tears of a Clown." Not that they were clowns, but clown is the metaphor for performer, right? We put the mask on always because you do your work, and your work is to inspire and motivate people. So you have to put the smile on, but you could be dying inside, literally, and folks won't know it because some of the greatest actors can fool us that can't see it in the eyes the way you can paint. But that's it. That song had been reoccurring in my mind over the last couple of weeks, given all of this news that had happened. But also on the survival front of masking, it's like a social order. It's like what we're told to do. It's like a behavior that you learn from a very young age to mask. I don't feel good, Mom. I don't want to go to school. Well, you got to go to school. So just suck it up and get out there and go to school. So you go to school and you're or you act out if you are good at masking, and then you get in trouble from the teachers or at the job. You got to go get that money. So you're going to go in, even though you're hurting, inside and out, but that people are counting on you for a certain set of actions. And if you don't deliver, you have the fear of survival and being replaced, especially as a person of color and a female. It's like, work will go on whether you're there or not. So you want to be there. So you mask up and just get it done, right? Yeah. In relationships, when you don't want to argue or you don't want to continue down a negative path, you kind of just suck it up and smile it away and try to push it. You kick the can down the road later to deal with it at another time, but you're masking, or either in front of the children, so you don't want to argue in front of them, right? Or the relatives or the company that just came by. You put the mask on. So it's almost like a social mandate that we wear a mask in almost every situation. Like, what is true liberation and freedom? To be fully, authentically expressed without the fear of either judgment or survival or all those things that we fear will happen if we are just who we are.
Right. Or that your feelings will be used against you somehow.
Against you, right?
The
I met
rejection, the abandonment. Yeah.
I had met this person about 10 years ago, and I'll never forget. And that was the first time I had encountered a person with, it was on the Down syndrome spectrum. There was no filter, no mask. Every emotion, every thought was just right there on the table. And knowing the condition of this person, it eliminated my automatic judgment that we have on people about the things that they say and do. And I was so fascinated by the fact that there was no filter there. And I was like, how can we get back to that if we ever were there? Like, how do we get to that authentic level of expression where we're not embarrassed or not ashamed or not fearful of what the other person might say by hearing the words that are, that we're speaking?
Got it. That's good. Oh, that's so good. I would have loved to be there to hear that person just in all that freedom of expression, right? Even though they had Down syndrome, still just that exercise of just saying what comes up, and there's that, but then there's also having a level of sophistication around, your filter, so to speak, but we'll get into that, but that's a really great example. I love that you brought that up.
Just want to go back what Auntie Genoa was saying. The social media platform is full of mess. And I remember watching an episode of how to get these young people to stardom with the different things that they used. And this one young woman, they used tools like a toilet seat to make it look like they were flying. So they put the toilet seat up, and then they had their face, and it looked like an airplane window. Like, I'm flying all over the place, and I was like, wow, it's amazing what the tools and the links for people to go to just to say, I'm this, I'm that. And going back to what Auntie Wanda was saying, and it just reminded me, my niece she speaks sign language. So, and she told me about the world of the deaf. And she said things like, they're very blunt because they don't hear the emotions. They don't hear the different forms of emotions that you can put in your voice and you can recognize. Wow. Oh, this person's sad, or this person's very happy, this person's sneaky, whatever the emotion is, or whatever the content is. And they're just very blunt. They say they just say what they mean. And she said she's got her feelings hurt a few times because they just come out and say it. They don't understand the levels of, because they haven't heard it. So, and that was when you said that, Wanda, I said, oh, okay, that reminded me of that. But what I wanted to say was, like you said earlier, Paige, it's mainly survival, survival. I mean, we use it, but it's for survival. I feel, because in the workplace, and in school, I remember when I was in college, and I think I may have even said the story that one particular professor wanted all the women to wear high heels.
Wow.
Yes. And if you didn't wear high heels, you didn't get an A. I don't care how good you were.
Was this a male professor?
Yes, definitely.
I had to be before the Me Too movement.
Oh, yeah. So, but anyway, so I was like, no, I'm not wearing high heels. This is too much, and so
what was the course? Can I ask what was the course?
It was acting. It was acting 101. Acting. So, he wanted, so I was like, I'm not wearing them. I had to take him like a couple times. So I ended up getting a C. And I know I was acting my butt off a little bit back then.
Yeah.
But so I said, oh, so, that kind of like, So So this time I said, okay, I'm going to take my high heels and I'm going to wear them in his class. As soon as I get to the door, I'm going to put them on and then go into class.
And then how did that work out?
Got an A.
Wow.
But you know, over the years, it, you know, is speaking of masking, that really hurt for me to do that. To my work didn't count. What I was studying, what he was teaching, none of that counted. Only thing that counted was wearing those high heels.
Wow.
And you know, when I tell that story, people are like, well, that's not a big deal. It is.
Yes, it is.
And it was.
Control.
And I did wear that mask.
Yes, and that you're feeling, or you're giving us a great object lesson on exactly what that is. When you do wear a mask and you are inauthentic and you are disingenuous, it really does rob a piece of your spirit. It robs a piece of your soul. It takes a piece of your personality away from you. You know, it is a violation, actually. You know, even if we are self-masking, it's still a violation, because we have to ask ourselves, and this would be the next question, what's behind the mask? What is it we're trying to hide? Or what is it we're afraid of or ashamed of? Or, yeah, it really generally, I say, revolves around fear. It's a fear of something, fear of being found out, fear of being, you know, abandoned, fear of being rejected, fear of getting the C instead of the A, you know, fear of standing up against someone else's imposition on our lives, you know?
Well, this is the thing, because I was listening to what she was saying, and it just seemed like to me that as a people, the ones that's at the very top, we're being conditioned to be manipulated.
The ones who are at the very top. What do you mean by that?
Because okay, she was talking about a professor. He was in a sense in control of her future to a certain degree.
Oh, the ones in authority.
Yeah,
Positional power. Yep.
So basically, it starts in small increments at each level of our lives. But we're being conditioned to be manipulated and controlled, and if she was able to get her what she worked hard for, who knows what she got robbed of every time she had to buckle under that manipulation and that control. And I'm not talking about even just the pieces of herself. I'm talking about even the fruit from her labor was robbed.
I get that. I really get that. And that's intense, because it goes to the first question I thought would be appropriate for this conversation is, what is behind the mask, right? Because that is super important to know, because then we can make a choice whether or not we really need or want to wear the mask. The second question then becomes, if we say that the mask is for surviving, right? Survival, then what is it we're surviving? What I know based on our history is that our ancestors absolutely positively had to do it in order to survive. Do we still need to?
Yes.
Okay. In some cases or all?
I'm going to disagree.
I'm going to disagree.
Yeah, I think we are conditioned to, right? And maybe we don't need to anymore. Like, we're the fleas in the jar and the lid has been taken off, and we just got to jump outside of the jar and let the world know who we are. Like, I think folks can take some liberties, as you know, we have to look at number 45, how he took the mask off and just said whatever was there for him to say. And it was very toxic. But we can also take the mask off and say what's not toxic, what's love, what we're really feeling like, really get into what's really there and do it as an experiment, like a little bit at a time, to unmask, to begin to shed the layers, right?
Right.
Try it out in one situation and then move to the next one and see if you can do it again, and just keep it up until that muscle is, you know, built up. And then you know that you can dismantle the mask and not have to put it on as much as we think we do.
Right. And maybe starting in interpersonal relationships,
Mhm.
right? And work. First of all, how about this? Start with ourselves,
Right.
right? Because there's some things that absolutely mask about just in relationship with our own personal selves.
Mhm.
And then once, we start building that muscle to the degree we can then move to the interpersonal relationship. And then maybe within our friend groups, community, village, and then start to widen our circle. I also hear what Auntie Genoa is saying, which is, it comes down to a choice, because sure, we can unmask and say what's so to every person in our path. But what about when you get stopped by that police officer that you can detect, like your black radar goes up, and that you are in the presence of a zip full, right? And this person could kill you. So, is there a level of survival of masking? Because you have a choice at that point. You really do have a choice. Like, you could either totally unmask and tell him how you feel or her how you feel, and cause the situation, not cause it, but allow the situation to escalate. Or you can kind of do the little shucking and jiving for a minute, the smiling a little extra hard, whatever it takes to get out of that situation alive. I was watching this one brother who is literally a gun trainer, right? He trains people about how to get their carrying license, their gun carrying license. And a brother, tall, dark, larger build, and he gets stopped. And he has his camera on so we can see what he's doing. And even though he knows all the things to say, even though he definitely knows all the things to do, show your hands, not just, your hands like this, but the palms of your hands the whole time. Speak to them the whole time. Let them know, that you're engaged and you're not reaching for anything. Tell them where your weapon is. He went through all these things, but you know what? He was still shaking like a leaf. Right? But you could tell he was being overly nice, overly friendly. He even said at some point, y'all matter too. Was it weird? Yes. But do I understand it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I get the difference between where we are, Wanda, and where Genoa was going. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. I'm not saying that you can't take your mask off, but there's got to be some wisdom in it, because of the times that we live in. Because even when we do the right things, we're still leaving here in droves. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
we're still leaving here.
I totally agree, because when I first got to California, the OJ trial was really, really, the verdict had people mad. I left Virginia. The OJ trial.
Okay, yeah.
And it had the United. We were in a divide. People were upset. It was just a lot. So before I left Virginia, people were saying on the radio, talking to the radio personalities, that wanted to know what was going on, how it was feeling. And every person that had power said, I will never hire another Black person. This is it. This is war. People were mean, people were mad, people were hurt. So, I'm like, okay, I'm leaving this. So I get to California. I get stopped by the police. I'm just getting here. I get stopped by the police. And just like you said, Paige, I could tell that this man wanted me to say something. Mm-hmm. He wanted me to just maybe toot my lips up or whatever. He wanted me to shake my head and because he was trying so hard, and I could tell he was mad. I was on the side of the road for 5 hours because he dared me. Oh yeah, he was checking and doing everything. What so-called checking my everything. He took my license and he said, I'm just checking things out. He checked me out for 5 hours. He was waiting for me to say something. He had his baton. He was waiting for me to give him just a hair of whatever it is. So no, I don't want a mask. I don't want to. But I know at that time, if I did, this man was waiting to bash my head in. He wanted that. He was mad about the OJ trial. And I didn't do nothing. I didn't give him nothing, not an ounce of nothing. And that's how I feel about our young men that's out here. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're right. They get pulled over for nothing, and then they shoot them dead. I say, this is what I say.
I
say, smile, put that mask on, because I want you home.
Right.
And do what you have to do and come home. And then we'll get on the political platforms later. But I want you to come home.
Yeah, I got it. So I get that, and I'm going to play a little bit of an advocate here. Okay, so we teach our young people to mask in front of the man. Shuck and jive, do your dance, do your huckabuck. Out there in the world, what happens when that translates now to every part of my being? It filters into every part of my life. Is there a way that I can make that distinction and do it out in the world, but then turn that off, right? When I'm in my interpersonal relationship with a fiance or a family member or an organization, when we do it with each other. I want to read just a passage out of here about take us back and then connect the dots back to where we are again. And one of you made a really good point about the construct that we live in. It was you, Genoa. And, there's not a huge difference. I don't care what people say. There's not a huge difference between what was going on then, back in, slavery, enslavement, and what's going on now in terms of the way that certain people see us and behave toward us and believe about us, period. Right? There is no difference. And when people say, oh, times have changed. Okay, you know what? Times may have changed, but the construct has gotten more sophisticated. I call it like, the wounds. When we first discover what they are, the fear, the rage, the anger, all of that, the masking and pretending, all of that. When we first discover what it is and we can recognize it, we see it with its raggedy self, right? It's funky, it stinks, it's got a holy t-shirt and raggedy jeans, and you could see it coming from a mile away. But then as things begin to develop and the system becomes more finessed and sophisticated, I say that the wounds come back on a tuxedo now. Right? Smelling good, looking good. Like, I'm not really a wound. I'm not really racism. We live in a post-racial society after all. We've had a Black president, by George. Noah loves it when I say by George. But I'm going to read just a little taste out of here on page 184. It says, whether we realize it or not, we have adapted certain behaviors from our ancestors, who passed them on to the generations that followed. And here we are, for the most part, unaware that we sometimes wear masks. We're afraid to reveal our true selves because we live in an environment that is hostile to our survival. Yes, wearing a mask understandably stems from the belief that they are out to get us. We are more likely to hide our genuine selves from the world when we believe our true identity, personality, character, dreams, ideas, or desires are under brutal attack. What must it have been like for our enslaved ancestors? To show oneself as capable, strong, smart, or overly clever could mean punishment or death. Lies became a way of life in their environment. Did you steal that fat back out my kitchen, gal? NASA, the dog must have ate it. The lie, the mask. Can you see how the conditioning is developed? And I have my own personal story about, how I first learned to mask. I won't go into the story now. Maybe we'll do a part 2 because I want to give y'all an opportunity to talk too. But yeah, I remember. I mean, it's a very exact moment that I was, I think, maybe 6-ish, and I learned. And I'll talk about that later. But I just wanted to kind of connect the dots between then and now, and how it's not that much different. But now we do have a choice. It's just a matter of whether or not we want to face and deal with the consequences of our choice.
Exactly.
Right? Like Sandra Bland, for example. Sandra Bland, we all know who she is, right?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Right?
It's hard to say. I don't know no Black person that are starting a new life, new job, and everything that's gonna off themselves. We don't do that. I'm sorry.
Right.
We, especially as she was a female, I'm a female, and she looked like she was real happy about where she was going.
Right. And she was a rebel. I mean, come on, she was an activist. She knows the game. And as a matter of fact, the last person that she either spoke to or wrote to, whatever the last few words that we have from that sister on record are, that her sister went on in front of the media to tell us that she had said, if they say that I committed suicide, don't you dare believe them.
That's right.
And yet I was watching someone on Oprah's Soul Sunday, right? Don't come after me. Oh, if you see this, don't come after me. That's not my fault. I'm just quoting what the man said. She had a guest that was relaying the Sandra Bland story. And his whole forte is figuring out how we can, as people, like kind of go into first impression meetings unbiased, right? How can we learn to go into these first impression when you're first meeting somebody, come into a relationship with them unbiased? He brought her up as an example, and he said, she wasn't in the wrong. She had every right to have that cigarette lit. She had every right to, speak and try to figure out why the officer stopped her. The officer never even stopped her until she was trying to get out of his way because he was behind her. She pulls over without using her signal because she was trying to get out of his way. And he went all the way down the line as to how she was innocent. And then he goes, and then 2 days later, she commits suicide. Oh, my heart. Because I know the sister was totally unmasked in that conversation with that officer. Totally genuine, totally authentic, knew her rights. This is a very intelligent activist, right?
Yes.
She knew her stuff. She knew the law. And the man was white. That was on Oprah, right? He's telling, I don't remember his name, and I wouldn't say it if I did, because I'm not going to give him any extra platform. But yeah, so there's the consequence. And part of that consequence is now that this white man has helped to define her narrative.
Right.
Because how large is the Oprah platform?
Oh, please.
How vast? Global.
Yeah, but I don't think people believe that she did that. I just can't. I just can't believe that people believe that she killed herself. I just can't.
You'd be amazed.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed.
But this white man and his platform, I bet they believe it.
Wow.
We know.
Yeah.
When I say we know, I'm talking about us's. We know. But you never know. But yeah, so there is the consequences of unmasking. And now let's bring it back from that macrocosm to the micro, the personal relationship, right? And what that does when, male, female, friends, family, community, village. What happens when we mask with one another? What is that? What's behind that? Is it that masking, that public masking has infiltrated our personal relationships, or why are we so guarded against each other? What is that?
People don't like to feel shame, number one. And number two, people don't like to be wrong. And wrong has a consequence of whatever the consequences are, and it often leads to shame and guilt. And so after you've been wrong or you were wrong publicly, and you suffered the consequences of the public humiliation of it all, you make a conscious choice to not let that happen again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you begin to mask what's really there out of fear of the public shame and guilt that comes along with the actual unmasking.
But if we're just two friends in a room, then
we're such a competitive, constructive society. Constructed society, competition. You don't want to look bad. I'm not in that place anymore, but I remember as a teenager, especially, how you wanted to get in and fit in. And you would mask, like, or you would pretend that you had more than you had, or you would mask that, your family does the same as the other family does all the time, or you would mask that, 5 of y'all sleeping in the same bed when your best friend that you want to be with has a whole big old room by herself with a big old bed, and y'all it's 5 of y'all, but you can't tell her that.
right.
You might think that they might think small of you, those kind of things. So it starts very early, like you said. You can recall when you were 6, and it when that awareness happens, when you start to step out into the world, into the classroom as a child, and you start to learn about other people and how they live and the things that they have, unless you come from a strong constituted family that that you're completely loved and you're whole and complete, and that your family means everything to you, and you have that fortitude, you're gonna cave. You're gonna try to fit in. There's few children that know how to be confident in themselves from a very early age, such that they don't need to pretend to be like something they don't, or
right.
they're attracted to that shiny object, and it's usually a friend that has more than you have, and then you figure out how to make it yours.
Got it. Well, my situation was I was trying not to get in trouble. and it was for something I had not done.
Right. Even in my home, in my childhood, when we played games, if you lost, if my brothers beat me, they wouldn't be satisfied with just my losing the game. They would be in my face and you lost, until you got mad and took the board and threw the board or the cards or whatever, or the tears came, right? And so you learned, they were training me to mask, like,
wow,
don't get mad, don't get upset. They're trying to break you. They're going to break you. Don't let them do it.
Right. Don't let them take you there. I get that. I do. Genoa, you had something you were gonna pipe up with. You were gonna say.
Okay. No. Auntie Wanda, I love the way you think, because you have this outside of the box thinking, and sometimes people think they gonna know what you're gonna say, but then you surprise. But even though there is a lot of competition, what you're talking about, that side of it gives me a way to I kind of keep my dignity. I don't know if that's the right word, but for the most part in our relationships, we are taught not to trust each other. Nobody, we don't
Where did
want
that
to
come from, though?
It's betrayal and exposure, because the thing is, in order to get favors from our enslaved ancestors, they taught, if you tell us what so and so is doing, we'll give you this. If you and you let me know, I'll give you this. But if something happened and you don't tell me, you're gonna get the same punishment as this person. And so you don't know if the person that you're trusting is gonna expose you.
Masking for survival.
You don't know if you don't know if you can trust them. And then even sometimes if they do little stuff, and we got all the psychology thing, red flag, and all this other stuff. And so we're like a mishmash of a whole bunch of stuff that goes on in society. And so we don't really have anything that's truly our own, if that makes any sense.
That's interesting. I don't know where my mother got it from. I really don't. Well, I think really my whole family was like this per se, but she was the strongest in this of all of her brothers, sisters, my aunts, uncles, and all them. But she was just like, look, the truth is the light, and I'm going to tell it. And she stood in that. And she taught me that. But then when I took that out into the world, people get very intimidated by that.
Yes.
People not only get very intimidated by it, but they're fearful of it. And what people fear, they want to kill.
Yes.
And that's just the truth. And I think that that's part of where, you know, that differentiation between, you know, some white people, I say most that I know of or have experienced, and all or most of the Black people that I know, that's where that conflict comes in racially, right? In this, as Wanda said, this American construct is, you know, is that, you know, there's havoc, there's killing, there's hostility. Let's just face it, that's what's real. When I think about Ahmaud Arbery, for example, how they hunted that kid and shot him down in the street. I mean, you know, you can say, oh, there's this right, this wrong, this truth, truth is relative and all that. But at the end of the day, my intention is to bring truth to it, like a truthful lens. And the truthful lens that I wear tells me that what I saw was the descendants of that behavior, right? And this kid, because he was Black, that behavior attacks that kid until he is literally dead. They hunted him like an animal. I mean, there are so many cases. I mean, Tatiana, what's Tatiana's last name? Jefferson. Tatiana Jefferson, you know, they just settled her case. Well, her killer just went to trial and got 11 years for manslaughter. The ex-officer who shot the kid, this woman, through her window, her bedroom window, while her nephew was there with her 8-year-old nephew. Now her nephew is 11. They just bring it to trial. He's 11. That's 3 years, right? And so at the end of the day, I am very aware of the mask. And I had to reprogram myself back to what my mother taught me originally, because I had that circumstance when I was little where I was about to be in trouble and I kept saying the truth. I didn't do it. And I didn't do it wasn't working. Right? So finally I just caved. And then I got the big whipping, right? And then after that, you know, the adult in my life who did it felt like they found out the truth. He found out the truth. And then it was too late, because now at my cellular level of my little being, right, I've learned a new lesson. The first lesson I carried all up to my 7th year was tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth. And my mom said, you know, if you tell mommy the truth, I can help you. If you don't tell me the truth, I can't help you, because I won't know what's going on. We need, you know, a barometer. We need like a pillar here, a foundation to work from. And our foundation is going to be truth, right? But then once I told that lie, okay, now I've got this cognizant dissonance. Well, mommy said if I tell the truth, I'm not going to be in trouble. But this person over here said if I don't tell the truth, he's going to get me anyway, right? So I'm just going to lie from now on. From now on, I'm going to put that little mask on. No, yes, I did it. No, I didn't. You know, whatever it took.
Right.
So you're right that it happens in childhood, Wanda. You're right. And why is it being taught in our childhood? That comes from someplace. And that's what I want us to begin to kind of delve into. We won't be able to go all the way there, I know, in this hour, but it's so critical that we find our place in all of this. And I will go back to exactly what Wanda said. I absolutely, positively believe in my heart, my soul, and my mind that masking is criminal. I won't do it. And when I find myself doing it, I've now taught myself how to reprogram myself and remove it. Just almost immediately.
Yeah, that happened to me last week in Target. I was shopping, and down the first aid aisle, on one side is the first aid supplies. On the opposite side is the condoms and things. And there was a group of 3 teenage boys who were looking at those products, and they were laughing and joking about them, and they kept saying the D word real loud, right?
Oh boy.
And I walked right past them when I first walked past them. They didn't look at me, but they were still in their conversation. And then I was looking for my product, and then they kept saying it, like, I need this to happen. And I was like, okay. I heard all of y'all, like, because of the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about when the aunties gonna correct the village. And I was like, I can't leave here. I gotta say something. I was like, excuse me. I don't think I have to shop and hear about your little D's. Which was very risky.
Right.
And it was like one of those run to Target and get one. So I had a hoodie on and a hat and a jacket in dark clothing and no makeup. So I probably looked kind of scary to them. And I wasn't going to say anything because my heart was just like, oh God, this is risky. Like, but the mask, I can't pretend like this is not really bothering me.
Right.
And they just kind of looked out the side of their eye and they said something to each other and they started walking to another aisle. But by that time, my heart was all the way in my throat because I didn't know what would jump off.
Right. Well, at least it was Target and not Walmart. Something would have jumped off if it was Walmart, because there's something about Walmart and the Waffle House.
You know what?
Just jumped off.
But I was proud of myself.
Well, I didn't want to applaud you for that.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
And I was like, okay, but I didn't feel like I was looking even old enough to say it to them, which is so strange. It's like I had all those thoughts. Like, do I look like I'm an elder for them to like really back down and not disrespect me when I ask them to do something? All those conversations flashed in that little short time frame. It was just interesting to see my body respond to that. So I was glad it ended peacefully, and I was like, I got to get out of here. My son was like, Mom, I'm so sorry you had to experience that.
Oh,
and I was really thankful he wasn't there, because it would have probably been another situation.
We definitely don't want that situation to jump off.
I wanted to say something really quickly. I'm so glad, Paige, that you said I had to reprogram, because it's that fight or flight. It's instant. In an instant. Why do people drive down the highway? Why do they decide to just keep going when the police is right there? Where you gonna go? I mean, but anyway, I'm so glad you said that, because it is so embedded. It is so there because of survival. For me, it's survival. Because going to Howard, it's like you have the Black pride. You have pride in yourself, your people, and what you're doing, and your career and your life, and you don't, it's certain things that you just don't do. But I noticed when my life is on the line, or somebody else's life is on the line, my heart just like, oh, why didn't he just comply? Why didn't he just, because when they have to drag you, I'm talking about the police. When they have to, pull at you, and you're just like, leave me alone, I didn't do nothing. My heart's aching, because my heart is saying, just don't say nothing. Just go home today. And that's the first thing come to my mind. But then the next minute, it's like, wait a minute. He had every right to be right there. He couldn't breathe. And you should have stopped. He kept saying, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. But did it matter?
So we must be talking about George Floyd.
Well, and then the other guy with the cigarette that was standing in front of the liquor store that said he couldn't breathe.
Oh,
Eric, both of them. And I'm saying to myself, I remember hearing an old interview when Rodney King, this white woman, they put her on and said, what did you think about this whole situation? And she said, had he just laid down and complied with them, everything was been all right. I'm like, ma'am, woman, lady, listen. They were beating him to a pulp. Who Tell me who could stand there and withstand all those beatings with the nightstick, with all these 5 or 6 people beating him to death. Who could withstand that? So in our mind, society is saying, just comply. We want to comply, but at the same time, our lives are on the line.
That's right.
Our lives are on the line.
That's
so
right.
I'm so glad when you said reprogram, because we do. I mean, because we have a right to walk, to talk, to shop, to go wherever, to go to school wherever we want to go, to work where we want to go, to self employ ourselves and other people. We have rights, human dignity rights like everyone else.
True.
But when it boils down to it, come on now.
Right.
You know, there's conversations before we get to the room. There's all kinds of tricks and trades. It's automatic. It's automatic. So when you have, I applaud you, Wanda, to stop say, wait a minute, because I've heard, this is before our show, but I've heard all kind of stuff. But I'm saying, but when you have that life on the line, that fight or flight, or you have what am I gonna do? At that moment, we need to know what to do. We have parents sitting down with their black son saying, now when the police stop you,
having the talk. Yeah.
This is what I need you to do. Yeah. And now we have biracial families sitting down and talking with their black sons, because it's not going to show up. It's not. You just have to say, this is what you're going to have to do. And I saw that video with that man that trains people, and he was terrified.
He was terrified.
We have to program ourselves, because we have every right to whatever this earth that God has given us to take.
Right. And here's what's powerful. Wanda, that was a perfect demonstration, because it's about your personal space. Mm-hmm. And your right to not have to hear about somebody's little d. Because if you're talking about it, it's probably little. But seriously, so you're in this position where you can be totally, fully self-expressed and sitting in your power, standing in your power, standing in your right, as you were saying, Rosemarie, to exercise my ability to not hear a racist comment, not hear about somebody's little d, not hear about anything that is offensive to me that doesn't need to be spoken publicly. Now, do they have a right to speak it publicly? Yeah. First Amendment says that they have a right to speak it publicly. But, now there are two opposing situations, right? You're saying, okay, yes, you have a right to say what you're saying, but you're saying it in my personal space. So I also have the right to let you know that that's not okay with me. Because if I hear a racist comment, I hear a racist joke, I hear somebody say something that is, out of line, and it hurts someone else, or they're planning to hurt someone else, or they're gossiping about, I'll let them know, because I don't want that in my space. Now, we can decide to go our separate ways, so we each have our own personal space, or we can decide how we're going to be in this space together. But what I'm not going to do is put on a mask that says, that's okay with me. Continue on. That's okay with me. That was powerful.
I wish we had the little radar check, like the Terminator, where he would assess the levels of danger, so you can see if the risk is worth taking. Because I also was pulled over with Jacob in the car one night. It was right as it got dark, and we were about to get on the freeway, and they stopped us before we got onto the ramp. So we were right on the side of the ramp, and the pullover was because the light above my license plate was not working. Not my tail lights. The light above the license plate.
Right.
I didn't even know there was a light above the license plate, first off. So I wouldn't have known to check for it to report it. And obviously you saw my license plate because my car was clean and your headlights were on. And we know license plates have reflective materials in the paint. So there was no issue about you can't see that I have a license plate. The issue was there was a black woman and a black man in the car, and we're going to pull you over.
Right. And
You
Jacob
harassed
is
me.
her 20 something year old son, right?
He was 18 when that happened.
18 then.
Like
That's
2 years
fabulous.
ago. So we're both there with our hands on the dashboard. I'm on the steering wheel on the dashboard, and they want our ID. They want mine, and then they ask for his, and I was like, but he's not driving. Why do you need his ID? And then the other cop came on the side where he was and started shining the flashlight in his face.
Mm-hmm.
And so he tapped the window first to put it down. He goes, "How are you folks doing?" I said, "We were fine 5 minutes ago, but now we're not."
Right.
And he kind of laughed, and we laughed. And then I said, there's probably a real crime happening somewhere about 2 miles from here, right? Which I probably shouldn't have said, but that point of annoyance happened, and our hands were still not moving. And then they did ask for his ID, and we just gave it to him, not to argue that down. And then they gave it back. But it was just, I'm like, really? You're pulling me over because there's a light above my license plate? What about older cars that don't even have that? Mm-hmm. How did they get a pass? Are you now looking at cars, at a certain age in order to pull over because they don't have a light above the license plate? That wasn't an automatic thing. That didn't happen until, I don't know how many years ago, but it was so unnecessary.
Right. And like you said, aren't there real crimes going on right now?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was definitely substantiated. I mean,
that's scary, because the thing is, I know why you said that. You look at it now as inappropriate, but that was your way of letting off that
angst. Yeah,
that was your scream.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is unfair. That was your scream, and it's good that it came out just in that comment, because you really could have just lost it.
Yeah.
So
or she could have just swallowed the rage.
Yeah.
But it came out because she was nervous, not for herself.
Yeah.
For her son.
Yeah. Yeah.
They shine the light on him like he did something. Why do you even need his driver's license? He's not driving. I'm driving.
And when things like that happen, normally if we do mask in that moment, which in some cases we've decided that it may be best, maybe, if you don't, then where does that angst, where does that anxiety, where does that nervousness, where does that rage, where does that lack of self-control and government over your own body, where does it go?
In your body?
In your belly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kills people. That's why we have the highest rates of heart attacks and heart disease and high blood pressure and, even diabetes. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the diseases that we have that, are the highest rates and the highest concentrations of Black people is because of containing that rage and that anxiety and all of that, and that stress.
Yeah, it's called allocation load. I learned that about a month ago. Whoa.
Yes.
That's deep.
Okay.
And essentially, it's stressing us out. So I see that we're at our hour.
Whoa, that was fun.
And are there any questions out there, comments, anything out there in our viewing audience? We see you there. First of all, we want to appreciate you for being here very, very much. We hope that that you've gotten something out of what we've brought to you tonight. And if you find that you have any questions, you can always go to YouTube. You can plant your questions here, and we will get back to you and answer you. But we will be here every Monday at 7 p.m. PST, and we'll always have a lively topic going on. And we just want to say thank you very much for trusting us with your time, sharing our space with us. And we are your favorite aunties. Yay. We are your aunties, and you can tell us everything. Anything. There's a way to say everything. Right? You can tell us everything. You really can. So I'll just leave it at that. And with that, I want to thank our producer, DY. I want to thank Auntie Rosemary, Auntie Genoa, and Auntie Wanda. And I want to thank myself.
Yes.
For coming on the day after the big holiday and giving our all. And thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye. DY went out for a hamburger.